Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, D-Generation X proudly brings to you the tag team champions of the world, Mr. Gage Ryan and me, Steve, 5-star. I don't know what my name is, but you know who I am and you know what I do. I make dumbass jokes about the Pittsburgh Steelers on the internet. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Week 2 edition of 5-Star Radio. We are moving and shaking already 1/8 of the way through football season, which seems insane. But I am here, like usual, with my trusty co-host, Mr. Gage Ryan. How you doing, bud?
Oh, just great. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing good. I'm very busy all day, every day right now. I don't know. I guess I've probably mentioned it, but I'm getting married soon, so I am working on that. I have a 15-foot skeleton that my wife and I are covering in mirror tiles, and I live in a Brooklyn apartment. So as you might imagine, a femur of a 15-foot skeleton is like, I don't know, several feet. So I have a lot of limbs in my house. And there's tiny shards of glass everywhere.
I have a bunch of limbs in my house too, but that's for different reasons.
Here, I don't know if it'll blur it out, but here's one of the bones. This is just one, but this is just one bone. So then there's like a whole rib cage and a skull, and yes, that's what my life is right now. You know. That's what's going on in my house, stepping on tiny pieces of glass. But, you know, watching the Steelers in the post-Ben Roethlisberger era has been quite like stepping on tiny pieces of glass all day, every day. So I'm prepared. Joe says, 5-star, don't get married. Bad news. I'm already married, actually. This is kind of a sham fake wedding to get presents. So, no, it's not. I mean, we got married for insurance, you know, the American healthcare system, you know. But thank you for the love. And yeah, I see Steel Flyers in the chat. We got to give a quick shout out to my man Steel Flyers, who joined us last week. We're putting him on the IR. He had a little bit of an injury issue last week. Got hurt a little bit, and he's going to be taking a little minute off from the radio to get right. So we'll see him soon, but much love, brother. And he's still hawking the Patreon while he's not even on the show. You love to see it. If you want to support Steel Flyers getting better, hop over to that patreon.com/5SMU for just $4 a month. We can fix the American health system $4 at a time. Come on, friends.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah. So, Gage, what were your reflections now 2 days later after the Steelers Week 2 win? I think much the same. I think it was a little more in control, maybe I would say, this week, it felt like. But I don't know how much of that had to do with the Broncos just totally fucking sucking.
Yeah, so first things first, I see Make a Toast in the chat talking about my Gage, my brother, and baldness, and it's like, hell yeah, man. I was never going to be that guy. I love telling people this. I was never going to be that guy that just kept what was left. I wasn't going to wear a toque. I wasn't going to, put on wigs or anything. I was going to tap out the baldness immediately. You have heard plenty of women who love bald guys, but you've never heard a single woman say that they like a comb over. You know what I'm saying? So first things first, you got to get that out of the way. But
we got the full gradient on our channel.
Yeah. What you can't do though is not have any kind of facial hair though. That's unacceptable.
You got to be able to have a beard.
Yeah, as you know, I the last time I shaved this was in 2016 because I made a bet with my friend that Trump wouldn't get elected. Not to get political, but I'm just saying that was what the bet was, and so that's the last time I had any semblance of baby face, and it's never going to happen again. As far as the game goes, I gotta say I enjoyed it, but it was also just a typical boring Steelers win. But as Coach T and everybody else always loves to say, I'd rather win ugly than lose clean. You know, it felt like a domination somehow. I've never seen a 13-6 game be domination before, but it felt like it was. It felt like they couldn't do anything, and it felt like we were imposing our will, even if it didn't necessarily show up on the scoreboard at all times.
Yeah, I just want to say shout out real quick to my man Sean Griffin, who is a Patreon subscriber and dropped another $4.99 in the chat. That's awesome, man. Appreciate you. He said, "Congrats on the wedding. Remind me, and I'll send you some cash for a drink." Appreciate that, brother. You know, the kind words do mean a lot. Be like Sean. Hop over to Patreon, man. You want the full show every week? Look, YouTube is really handcuffing me the way that I'm delivering it now. It sucks. It sucks for the channel. Like, trust me, I know. Like, I wish I was still putting up the bigger numbers, but I'm not going to get recommended on shorter videos. So it is what it is. You want the full show, go over to Patreon for the full experience, just like Sean did. Yeah, you know, I agree with you. I think that it did feel like domination in a sense, and it could have
did not tell the story of it.
No, it was a very much a 70s style 13-6 kind of game, you know? And I think that a couple things that popped off to me when I did the show was that, you know, this really could have been like a 27-6 kind of drubbing, honestly. I'm not, we've been down this road, you and me now, we're the original like Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges era kind of like, okay, everybody picks a camp of whatever quarterback they're in, and you know, that's the team you're on, and this thing and that thing. And you know, I already am getting called now like a Justin Fields apologist, and that's the camp that I'm in, right? And it's like, okay, I just thought that he played really well 2 weeks in a row. I thought this week he made a number of throws, probably 3 or 4, one for a touchdown, one for a deep one, and 2 that were, I think one was almost complete, or 2 were pass interferences, like defensive pass interferences. But the throws, I gotta say, man, were right on the money. I mean, that one he threw and actually completed to Pickens, where he rolled out, and that was kind of like the Zach Wilson, like, you know, that the combine throw, you know, where you roll and then you come back and you throw it deep, and everybody's like, wow, that's amazing, when it's like you so rarely ever do that actual move in the game.
The throw heard around the world. So a quick bit on that point, though, is that's something that drives me crazy. Is whenever you see these draft analysts talk about, well, look at this crazy throw he made. One of my jiu-jitsu coaches said it really well, where he said that how many times in your life do you think you're going to win with a flying, spinning triangle from standing clinch position or whatever? Now, how many times are you going to win with a rear naked choke? He's like, now, which one of these should you practice a little more? You know what I mean? You see those things.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Zach Wilson did. And I mean, that singular throw, that one single combine throw set him back like 5 years.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But that throw that Fields made, I just thought was spectacular. I thought it was one of, if not the best throw I've seen a Steelers quarterback make since Ben's arm exploded. I mean, it was right on the money. It was just a laser beam. And to me, I mean, I just thought he played way better than the stat sheet anticipated. And I think that, you know, the thing I keep stressing in the Discord server, which you can get in at patreon.com/5SMU. The thing I keep stressing there is the routine things routinely, right? That's a Tomlinism, but I think that that's like a really important point here, right? Because we know that a Justin Fields, like, we know that he has unbelievable physical ability. Like, there's no doubt about it. He's definitely like the most gifted athletic, you know, the most athletically gifted Steelers quarterback since Cordell Stewart, and probably maybe ever, honestly. I mean, in terms of straight line running speed, I don't know that there's probably any debate about that. He's probably the fastest, most athletic guy to play quarterback for the Steelers. And so we know that. We know he has that ability. We know he has a strong arm. But what I'm interested in is when he dumps it off to Jaylen Warren, is he going to lead him in a direction where he can run? If he hits a crosser, is he going to lead him in a direction where he can run? And, you know, those little timing patterns. I thought that second touchdown he threw that actually was a touchdown that got called back because of Clete fucking Blakeman. Don't get me started on Clete Blakeman. Clete Blakeman, that son of a, you know, it was getting to the point on Sunday where I was like, you were taking over the game. Like, enough already. You are trying to get on screen. It reminded me of 2 years ago at the Super Bowl when Ice Spice was attached at the hip to Taylor Swift. And I was like, that's because you know that every single time they show Taylor Swift, which is going to be a million times, you're going to be on the camera. So stop hogging the screen. And that's how I felt about Clete Blakeman. I think I probably am the first person in the history of the world to compare Ice Spice to Clete Blakeman, but I hate them both, so whatever.
You know, as much as I want to know what your hatred for Ice Spice is, I don't think we have enough time to unpack that here. But I do want to say, as far as the Clete Blakeman comparison and while that goes, I mean, he was bad. I mean, this was like, you know, and it's not like he had a huge amount of calls that were just absolutely wrong. I mean, there were a couple, don't get me wrong, there were a couple, you know, especially the pass interference or whatever, that was super ticky-tack. One of the holding calls, I think, on Broderick was a little ticky-tack. But at the end of the day, if you commit 3 penalties in, 4 goddamn plays, there's just no excuse for that. That's one of the worst stretches of plays an O-lineman has had on the Steelers probably since, like, the 50s. So that's pretty bad. I still believe in Broderick Jones, just for the record. I like Broderick, and I hope that he finds a path to stay on the team. I feel like they might be molding him for when or if Dan Moore doesn't stick around. But I don't know. There's just a whole lot of things about the team that kind of doesn't make sense. And I feel like right now, just because we're winning, they've kind of been masked. So
yeah.
I don't know if waiting for the other shoe to drop is the right analogy here, because I do think that there's a lot of good on this team. And it's not like we're just building a foundation kind of stacked on a bunch of smoke and mirrors, kind of like we did with the 11-0 run. We won two games that we should have won, for sure.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think that, like, you know, I mean, I feel the exact same way, you know, about this team as I have now for the last several years. And I've said this over and over again, which is that, like, I just think that you don't know, like, there's trepidation, I think, around this team with fans, and there should be, because you don't know anything about anything until you know if they have the quarterback spot figured out. And really, like, that's all it comes down to. We know that this defense is really good. We know that, well, I was going to say we know that the skill players are really good, but they're all pretty good except for the wide receivers after George Pickens, obviously. And that continues to be a glaring problem. I mean, I have seen not one thing from Calvin Austin or Van Jefferson so far that interests me.
That's true. But if I can offer a quick counterpoint to that, then thank God we got Arthur Smith at the time we did. Again, not saying he's an amazing offensive coordinator, but if you're going to bring in any OC with a weak-ass wide receiver room, you're going to go for the guy that likes to go into 13 personnel every game. You know, and our tight ends have done pretty well. I mean, we already got Darnell Washington his first touchdown, which I was hoping we could do last year, but, you know, we couldn't do much of anything last year.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. I loved that little play, and that's the kind of thing that's just so simple, you know? Again, to that point I had of routine things routinely, like, you know, just like, that was just like a basketball play. Like, you know, that just looked like throwing a little pass to a guy in the post, and, you know, it was just so simple. And that's the kind of stuff that for years now with the Canada regime, we've been sitting here saying, like, why is it so hard? Like, why is everything so difficult? You know, and that, I think, is ultimately like the takeaway slogan from the Kenny Pickett era, which is like, why was it so hard? Like, you know, I mean, I get it's hard to throw 35 touchdowns in the NFL, but is it really that hard to throw like 15? in a whole season nowadays. Like, because I mean, I see a lot of people do it. Jake Browning went into the Bengals and played pretty good last year. Like, so I think that we're still kind of in this wait and see period with the quarterback situation, but I gotta say I'm still onward and upwards with the Justin Fields thing. Like, I think that for me, it's compelling, and I think it sounds like he's going to start again this week, and this is going to be, I think, like really the first challenge, because they're going to need him to score, because the Chargers are going to score. I mean, Justin Herbert's really, really good, so they're going to score some points, and this is going to be the first time that the offense is going to have to hold up their end of the bargain, and it'll be interesting to see if they do.
So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big test for our offense and our defense. I think that, so the title of this stream is our defense elite? And I think this will be the first real test to where you can start to make that claim. Because at the end of the day, we've beaten the Falcons and the Broncos. And I mean, I do think that comes with caveats by saying, for instance, the last time that Kirk Cousins played us, he absolutely humiliated us. This time we shut him down and absolutely destroyed him on defense. Then you go into the next week against Sean Payton, a guy who routinely, say what you will about Sean Payton, about how Brees probably carried him, which is probably true. I mean, he probably got much better coaching from Marty Schottenheimer than he did from Sean Payton. But at the end of the day, like, for as bad as some people may say he is nowadays, he can still put together a competent offense a lot of times. And he usually absolutely dismantles Mike Tomlin. And again, this time our defense shut him down. So now we're going into a Jim Harbaugh's house with Greg Roman as OC and with Justin Herbert as the quarterback. Justin Herbert destroyed us last. This, see what I'm saying here? This is like a proving ground, I feel, for the first couple weeks of the year for our defense. And I'm actually excited about it. It's the first time in a while watching our defense that I'm excited to see how they face the adversity. Because normally it's like, oh God, we're going to give up 400, 500 yards. But this time I'm actually excited to see what they do.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I think that, the best thing that I can say about this team through 2 games is that the defense has been, at least especially in the second half of both of these games, I just think absolutely dominant. I mean, I just thought, especially the Atlanta game, I mean, Atlanta didn't do anything in the second half of that game. The Broncos finally got moving a little bit, and I think that their quarterback, or their coach, again, talking about Sean Payton, who is just, can I just say, like, the most unlikable head coach in the NFL. I mean, he just seems like such a miserable prick. Am I wrong? I mean, I can't think of a more unlikable head coach in the NFL.
I've heard that he has his demons and whatnot. I'm sure that contributes to it. He has a bad, like, cloud over him.
I think the kids would say negative aura, right? Would they say he has a bad aura? I just don't like him, and I thought that he really took his own team out of the game on Sunday. Like, a couple of decisions that he made where, he went for the 4th down before the half. I think it was 7-0, or maybe was it 10-0? I can't remember exactly, but he went for that, like, 4th and short, or 4th and medium. I think it was 4th and 6, maybe 4th and 5, something like that. And I was like sitting there thinking, like, what are you doing? Like, Mike Tomlin would not have done anything with the ball if you just punted it deep into the territory. Like, you just were begging him to show some confidence in Fields and get some points, and they did get a field goal before half. I can't remember. I think we must have been up 7-0 at that time. I don't remember exactly how it played out. But, I mean, that was questionable. And then later in the game, they ended up going for it on the 4th, and they got it. And then later on that drive, they ended up kicking a field goal once it got down under 2 minutes. And I'm sitting there at home watching, saying, like, I don't get that strategy at all, because once it got below 2 minutes, they didn't have enough timeouts to stop it if the Steelers got it back. So they were going to have to go on sides. And then he doesn't even kick on sides. And so, like, I did not get that at all. The only chance he had was that the Steelers would punt it back with 20 seconds to go and they would score a touchdown with their rookie quarterback. Like, I didn't get what that guy was doing at all on Sunday.
This may sound crazy at face value, but I really do think that there are a lot of Madden players that can probably manage a game clock better than some guys like Sean Payton. Because, like, not for not, it doesn't mean that they know anything about roster construction, even though they think they do, if you look at franchise Twitter and whatnot. But point being is that it feels like because of those thousands and thousands of repetitions on managing a game clock correctly versus the 17 a year that coaches get, it feels like at some point there might be some kind of tapering off period for these coaches like Sean Payton, who don't seem to have really changed a whole lot, and feels like maybe they had other people like doing the heavy lifting in terms of game management. Because oh boy, and you see that with certain coaches. You see that with certain coaches, like with Josh McDaniels when they had him just stay.
Remember that Raiders game last year? What did he kicked? Did he kick a field goal to make it like a 5-point game or something like that? I
with
can't
like
remember.
2 minutes to go.
Yeah, I can't remember that game where Pickett actually played pretty good. Yeah, he's the worst.
It was it was like the only deep touchdown of Pickett's career. It was to Calvin Austin down the middle.
Yeah,
but yeah, like you've seen when like McDaniels just kind of handles his business with the offense and doesn't touch the special teams or the defense. He's actually pretty good, but then you put him in charge of an entire franchise and it just falls apart into a million pieces. So that just happens with some coaches.
No, and and I think an important part of being a good coach too is knowing how to
knowing your weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly. How to ask for help with those things and have the right people in place. I saw an interesting thing this week. I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but maybe if somebody else knows, they can chime in. The Dan Campbell, I guess, actually like apologized because he mismanaged something at the end of a half and cost them a chance to get some points. And he like really took it hard because, obviously everybody loves Dan Campbell and he's, Mr. whatever, like they have the energy over there. They're building a thing. But now that's 2 times because in the NFC Championship game, he cost them some points too with a poor decision, poor clock management. It's just an interesting thing, right? Like it's such a specific job where you're managing so much at any given time. I think it behooves you to have really strong people around you.
And there's certain people, there's certain coaches. I can't remember any offhand. I feel like San Fran might have been one, but I'm not sure. But I know some people have hired some kind of like I'm going to butcher the name, but it's like a game clock coordinator. It's something that they're actually that's their thing is, well, statistically it's a better idea, or the numbers say you should do this. That's fascinating to me. I don't know how much you should really look into the analytics with stuff like that, because we've seen analytical coaches like Brandon Staley like make the wrong decision over and
repeatedly
over on 4th down.
Yeah.
So who knows how much you got to trust all of that stuff. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see how coaching trees kind of evolve, and about how well, for one, right now, like anybody that's like even like shook hands or smiled at Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan is getting a head coaching job right now. But it's funny to see how that stuff evolves through time.
Yeah, I see in the chat, Juju26 says most of Pickett's touchdowns were deep balls. You guys hate him too much. Okay. All right. You want to break this down? You want to talk about touchdowns with Kenny Pickett, Mr. 1.8 touchdown percentage, okay? He has
worst in NFL history.
The worst, I'm not exaggerating, literally the worst touchdown percentage in NFL history. I think he's thrown 12 or 13 touchdown passes on 700 pass attempts or something like that. That wouldn't have been a good number in 1965. So I don't want to hear it about his deep passing touchdowns. Yeah, he had a couple that were deep, but he only threw 13 of them in 2 years, so it wasn't really very many. And also, that's because he was dog shit in the red zone. So if he was even reasonably competent in the red zone, look, you guys watched me last year. I didn't have a problem with Pickett. I was trying to root for him, but at the end of the day, I mean, the league said what they said about him. Nobody wanted to take a chance on him to be a starter. So thank you, Philadelphia, for the 3rd round draft pick.
Appreciate you. And then who did we take? Was it Wilson that we took in the 3rd round?
Yeah, I think Roman Wilson. I think we had the 2 3rd rounds, so I don't remember which one was the Pickett pick, but hey, I'll take it all day, every day. And the Eagles lost last night.
I was gonna say the Eagles look like they're about a couple steps away from falling off the ledge, so to speak. I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on with them. It feels like they're on kind of a short leash with Nick Sirianni right now. It feels like they got rid of everybody else as kind of a way of saying, "All right, Nick, let's see if
Yeah.
you're the problem now." So I don't know, man. I really think that they screwed up whatever they fired Doug Peterson. That's just my opinion. I know that Nick Sirianni is a good coach in his own right. I know they made the Super Bowl, but just Peterson's a proven winner, and he's a guy that actually like evolves. And it just seems like Nick Sirianni just appreciates yelling at people a lot. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the
Yeah.
hell's gonna happen with
No, I
them.
mean I agree with that. And people forget they fell off a cliff yesterday, so or last year at the end of the season. So, who knows? But yeah, I mean back to the our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. I think you got to be loving what you're seeing out of the defense though so far. I mean
Oh
just
yeah,
absolutely dominant. Granted, I thought Bo Nix it just looked abundantly apparent to me that he is just not ready for prime time. Like, I mean, just obvious. That interception he threw in the end zone to Corey Trice was brutal. And it's good defensive play, but it's just a terrible pass.
it was a terrible. It feels good to get for Corey to finally get his first interception though. He's one of them speak it into existence types. I believe in the law of attraction too. So when he says he's going to be a Pro Bowler, I like root for him every time he makes a big play. So that was awesome. What was it? The other guy. I remember that we were saying this in the chat where it was him and Beanie Wells, or not
Yeah.
Beanie Wells. Was it Beanie Wells or is
Beanie Bishop?
Beanie Bishop? There it
Yeah,
is. Jesus
Beanie Wells, the running
Moses.
back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because does anybody remember Beanie Wells?
Yeah,
Shout
with
out to
the bad knees. We almost signed him one off season, I remember.
Yeah, we did. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Yeah, Beanie Bishop though. I mean, like it was him. It was Corey Trice and Beanie Bishop were the two guys. I was like, they gotta make a play, and I think both of them actually did, if I'm not mistaken. I know Beanie made a good play, had a deflection and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It feels like our defense, even the lesser known players that nobody knows, are stepping up.
Yeah, no, I think Dante Jackson has been phenomenal in his first couple games as a Steeler. He made one tackle and run support I put in the show where he fired in, and I mean, he just upended the dude. And I was like, whoa, that guy can play like that around the line of scrimmage. Then, I love that trade. I mean, it's looking better and better in retrospect. Shout out Deontay Johnson, I think has 34 receiving yards in 2 games. One thing about Omar Khan, I mean, everybody loves the con artist thing, all that. One thing I've learned about him, he is not afraid to be petty, man. And they knew exactly what they were doing by trading Deontay Johnson to the Panthers. And I feel I feel a little bad for Deontay because I don't think he's a bad guy, but it is a situation where it's like, careful what you wish for. Like, because he would have caught, I mean, assuming the offense is functional, I mean, he would have had another easy 80 catches, 1,000 yards this season. I mean, like, he's not going to get anywhere close to that. And then he's going to be a free agent after this season. Good luck, pal.
Oh, I was laughing my ass off when I saw that he went to Carolina. And I mean, just to your point, they knew exactly what they were doing. And I mean, you've seen coaches do this before. I can't remember who did it, but I do remember Belichick. There was a guy who like basically demanded more money, and he shipped him off to Cleveland. And that was,
Oh yeah, that
well,
was the linebacker, right? Was that
yeah, what was his name?
I forget. Oh, I got a fun conspiracy theory to share with you. So last night, I was watching. Maybe anybody has heard of this new HBO Max series called like Chimp Crazy. Have you heard of this? It's about people. It's like about people. It's like Tiger King, but for people who illegally buy and sell like monkeys.
Oh my
And
God.
so there's this one lady, and she's like the king, like whatever. She has all the hookups on chimps and all that. Okay, she's listing famous people that she's sold monkeys to, and she, not by name, she like refers to them, but then she says, people who are linebackers on the Cleveland Browns. And my brain instantly was like, Myles Garrett bought a chimpanzee, 100% guaranteed.
No
I would bet
question.
any amount of money Myles Garrett bought a chimpanzee.
Someone like Miles. Okay, he absolutely did. You know what? I love hearing. I love.
Can
this
we start
statistic.
that rumor right now? 5-star
Please.
community, get that out there. He could sue me. It's okay.
Please don't. We don't have anything for you to sue, man. I do want to say though, like in terms, man, Miles Garrett in particular. Do you remember that quarterback graveyard that he had?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
He just seems like the kind of guy that like is always willing to do crazy shit like that. So it would not surprise me at all if he had a chimp. Do you know about the statistic about tigers, pet tigers in Texas?
I don't, but I mean, tigers are crazy, man. You don't want to have a tiger.
There are more tigers. This is a statistic from Rogan, so if that's wrong, blame him. But according to him, there are more tigers in captivity in private collections in Texas than there are in the entire wild of the world.
That's insane. I hope that's not true. I really hope that's not true.
That it was like one guy gets one tiger and the other guy's like, I didn't know we could get tiger, and then like this guy gets 3. This guy starts tiger land.
You don't want a tiger, dude. Tigers are bad news, bro. Even you go to the zoo, tigers can't be with other tigers. They got to be by themselves because they'll kill a tiger. I don't want any animal that can kill a tiger anywhere near me. Like I don't, I'm actually from, now we're on this insane discourse, but whatever, who cares? You don't, this is 5-star matchup. This is what we do.
Did you come to watch a 13-6 breakdown? Let's be real.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about? No, because I was aware of the chimpanzee thing because you remember that lady who got her face ripped off. That was in Connecticut, where I'm from. That was not too far from where I'm from. So I was like apprised of that situation and the, okay. So Alex Nunez dropped $10 in the chat. What up, my man? Be like Alex and donate to the chat. That is legendary. We appreciate you greatly. Thank God we got the super chats back. We love it. We appreciate it. And he wants us to talk about football, not Myles Garrett buying chimpanzees. Chargers are mirror styles to how we want to play ball. If we want to confirm we can play bully ball, then we gotta bully the bullies this week. Also, I'm Alex Muniz on Patreon. Thanks and scroll. Oh, thanks and scroll. On the end scroll. Hell yeah, Alex. Like, I'm with you all the way. And we're very anti Harbaugh at 5-star matchup. And I actually find Jim Harbaugh way more insufferable than John Harbaugh. So let's go bully him.
I like Jim. I'm not gonna lie. I don't. Well, maybe but I don't dislike him. I know you just absolutely detest the Harbaughs. And as far as John goes, I'm right there with you. But like Jim, like there's just something about like him being so gung ho and so over the top. But the fact that he always wins at the highest level, that makes me kind of go, I guess that's just how he operates. Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where if you're a winner, people just put up with your shit. He's on with Belichick that like, yeah, he's a drill sergeant, but hey, you're probably going to win 12 games this season. And, Harbaugh is just over the top and ridiculous and emotional. And honestly, I love it. I think I love having coaches like him in the game. I was really excited to see that he came back.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I do think that, we're better for having personalities like that in the game for sure. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's like obviously the big thing that jumps off the page with them is just that, they got a quarterback who has,
superhuman.
Yeah, I mean, he's got an arm that's nearly unrivaled. I think besides Josh Allen, I don't know that there's anybody else that has just pure arm talent better than Herbert. I mean, I don't know. I think he's got a stronger arm than Mahomes. Like he's not as good of a player, but
Tony Richardson too. He also has a really good arm.
Oh yeah, Anthony Richardson. Yeah, he's really good. But 0-2, I think the Colts are. So I don't think that's.
Yeah, but if you're talking about arm talent,
no doubt.
That dude.
No doubt.
Yeah. Maybe like prime Aaron Rodgers, but I mean that dude's old now.
Yeah. No, I just like, I mean, Herbert and Allen, just because of the size, you look at that. Josh Allen just, man, it's never lost on me. Like, he just makes some throws sometimes. He made one throw between defenders against Miami the other night when I was watching. And he's like, for me, he reminds me of like the Steph Curry of football, where just every time I watch him, I just see one thing where I go, oh, fuck, that was awesome. Like, you know, just like one thing. He's not like, he's gonna be the second best guy to Patrick Mahomes like his whole career. He's gonna be, you know, that kind of guy. I don't know if he'll ever get over the hump, but man, he is just impressive to watch.
You know, he's going to be a guy that I'm sure he'll get a ring one of these years. You know, I'm sure one of these times Mahomes will be, you know, knock on wood, he might be injured for like a significant part of a season and they just don't meet each other in the playoffs and whatever happens. But I'm sure he'll get a ring at some point, and you know he absolutely deserves it. I mean, he had that perfect postseason until he went up against Mahomes and the what was it, the 13 seconds or 10 seconds?
Even that, he
seconds.
basically won that game like 3 times, and the defense kept alone in it.
What did they say that they scored like, or between the two teams or whatever, they scored like 24 points in the last like minute and some change.
Yeah, no,
game.
that was insane. Yeah,
that was one of the best, probably the best football game I've ever seen. I still go watch highlights from that game to this day. But also, man, like that, I think that was a perfect example of what we were talking about, where it's just Josh Allen was the second best football player on the planet that night. And it just sucks so bad that he went against the number one.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is. And we're getting there. You know, we're getting there now with Patrick Mahomes, where it's just getting to be like exhausting to watch, because it is like, it's just every week. It's the same thing as Brady for 20 years, where I know you're Mr. Anti-Brady, but still, it was way more likely that you were going to see him win than lose on any given week. And I think Mahomes is just becoming the you know, polished up version of that. But, you know, hey.
You're not wrong. Like, that's definitely, I have a much easier time watching it than I did with Brady, just for the fact that, I mean, there's a million reasons for it, but I mean, you know, whether it's the cheating and all that other stuff, but it's also just frustrating to have your defense get picked apart with checkdowns. Like, there's just something about that is like, why are you playing cover 4? Why is everybody playing 15 yards deep? You're playing against Brady. Do you think he's going to throw it 15 yards deep 3 times this whole game? You know what I mean? There was just this element.
He wasn't checking it. He wasn't checking it down to Chris Hogan in the 2016 AFC Championship game.
Yeah, those coverage busts where he was open by like 20 yards. What an amazing throw by Tom Brady. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
There's just so much of that. Like, whereas with Mahomes, like when you get beat by a guy who I'm not saying he does this every week, but like we're off his back foot, getting hit by 3 linemen.
No, he just does stuff.
55 yards. You can't only be so mad at that. Getting picked apart with checkdowns is the worst thing in the world.
No, I agree with that totally. But, you know, I mean, hey, I know another quarterback who is undefeated this year, and his name is Justin Strawberry Fields. And, you know, I'm so out of my element. It's the home opener this weekend, right? It must be, because we played the first 2 on the road. Got to be at home, right?
We can't get 3 in a row on the road.
No, yeah. So that's exciting. I mean, I hope that the energy helps them out. I hope that they come out aggressive. And you know, one other thing I wanted to note too, I mean, because I think that so often it's hard to really comment on the run game because it's such a cumulative thing. But man, I've thought Najee has looked great through 2 games. I don't know what his stats are. I'm sure they don't leap off the page, but just watching him, like I've just thought he's looked phenomenal. So he had 70 and 69. So, I mean, but not a lot, you know, not a ton of carries, 37 carries for 139 yards through 2 games, and 2 catches. You know, I just think he looks great. And I poked fun at it in the show, but the common thing that he has no vision. I think he's continuing to prove really wrong. And I think it's that the Steelers just didn't really have a professional run game scheme until this year, because I've just seen him looking like he's cutting and finding lanes. I thought this week especially, I just thought he looked good. You can't, he's not always going to break long runs and stuff like that because he's not the fastest, but I think he looks a little quicker this year. And I think his vision's leaping off the page to me.
No, no, I agree, and I mean that just shows that old football adage that progression isn't linear. Like it looked like Najee was kind of a finished product for a little bit, and I mean his vision wasn't good, and he did miss a lot of open holes, and then it just felt like he flipped a switch within the last like year or maybe year and some change, and now he's slowly but surely become much better at like finding holes, deciding when to hit the hole. He's done a lot better in that department. It's something that really surprises me because for a while I thought that he was just kind of a battering ram, but even then he's not gigantic. He's not like a Jerome Bettis kind of a frame where he can battering ram right off the bat. He's kind of an attrition guy more or less. So there were just kind of some issues that I had with his play style and whatnot. And he's really proved me wrong as a guy who can find the hole now. So love Naj.
Yeah, no, he's
at another level this year.
Yeah, no, he looks faster, and I think that was the story in camp that he had dropped a couple of pounds, and so I think it, I think it's showing, and I think it's really good for him. I hope he makes himself a bunch of money. I don't think it'll be here, unfortunately, because I really like him and I would like him to be a long-term Steeler, but I just think that if they wanted to extend him, they would have extended him. And he's probably going to want to dart for the door after this season, but I can't blame him. Shout out to BearPod, dropped $1.99 in the chat. He says his health improved after accepting Brady's goatness. So maybe a little piece of advice for you, Gage.
I appreciate the donation, pal.
No comment on the subject matter, however.
Nah, no comment.
Yeah, William McDuffie says Warren taught him that. I guess he's talking about the vision or what have you. Hey, iron sharpens iron.
I was just gonna say. I mean, like you find that like with some of these guys, where I mean, again, that whole progression is a linear thing. Sometimes you don't see any kind of improvement, any kind of department. Some guys they just don't clash, or their styles just don't clash. If we can use a pro wrestling term.
Yeah,
but it's good to see that Naj and Jalen, I mean, you see it on the field, so I guess there's no reason to think that it wouldn't be true off the field, but you can find that they tend to bring out the best in each other. And where you see Naj like battering ram people for a couple of plays, then you see Jalen go in and now he's juking and dodging people, and then he battering rams somebody. Now we're bringing Naj back in, and we're on the goal line, and you just bring him over the top. It's fun to see them bring out that. I'll be damned. We actually have some kind of variation of running back by committee. It's something we've only been screaming into the void about when it comes to Mike T Steelers for 20 years now.
It is. It was a trip to me.
Whether it's running Willie Parker into the ground or Rashard Mendenhall into the ground or whoever into the ground, it's good to see we're not doing.
It was a trip to me to realize in week 1 that Tomlin is now the longest tenured head coach in the NFL. I mean not that that's like surprising because obviously he's been here a long time, but just because, Belichick for so long, it was in, New England and, so it was such a surprise to me to hear that. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. Like he really he's becoming one of the older coaches in the NFL now. He's got to be past the median, right? I'm sure he's closer to the oldest coach in the league than he is the youngest coach in the league because almost all these guys getting hired now are like 40 or younger. So, just a trip, man. Time keeps going.
The McVay wave, as I call it, where it's just, now it's just everybody has kind of a babyface head coach. You see with Mike McDaniel and all these other guys. I mean, even guys like Mike Vrabel who don't have a baby face, but like guys like Mike Vrabel who are not super. I remember watching Mike Vrabel play, which makes me feel old, to be honest.
When I was watching the Texans game the other day, they were playing. They played. Who did they play? But they played. They played somebody that had Mercedes Lewis, who's still in the league, and he was drafted in 2006. He's 40 years old. And he's still playing at tight end. I guess he's still a good blocker. And he was drafted like a few spots away from DeMeco Ryans in the draft, who was the Texans head coach. What a trip.
Oh, man. I remember watching DeMeco's draft profile back in the day. I don't know if anybody. I don't know if this makes me old. I don't know if anybody out there remembers the old Comcast draft profiles that you would see on the on-demand shows. But I remember watching that breakdown about D'Amico Ryans about how it would be like a third or fourth round pick. I don't know when he was taken, but that's what they projected him to be. And it's just such a like to your point. It's just such a trip to see. Now he did. What did they say about Doug Peterson? It's the exact same thing where Doug Peterson used to be, I think, a quarterback under Andy Reid, and now coaches in what is it, the same division as him?
Yeah.
Are they in
Yeah.
the same division? I can't remember.
Peterson is the Jags head coach, isn't he? So not the
Oh
same
yeah,
division,
no, I don't think
but
it's the same
yeah.
division. No, but it's
Yeah.
just crazy that now that they're head coaches in the exact same league.
I mean,
Time
listen,
really does fly.
Joey Porter Jr. is turning into an all-pro caliber cornerback, and you and me both watched his dad. We're not even that old, and we both watched his dad like win a Super Bowl. I mean, just wild to think about, man. Asante Samuel's son is in the league. I mean, guys that I remember like their whole career. It's a trip. LeBron now has got his son on his team with him over there in LA. I know, but it's still pretty cool. I mean, it's just a cool thing. Like, it's just
It is.
interesting.
Yeah, he gets to play with his. What did Frank Gore get the chance to play football with his
No,
son? I know
I
that he
think
got close.
yeah, I think he missed out by a couple years.
Ah,
He should come back, make a comeback. The first 45-year-old running back.
sure. I mean, listen, if any one singular running back in NFL history could play at 45, maybe Frank Gore.
Yeah, he can get
Who
you.
else? Who's going to play at 45?
He can get you a touchdown. You know. Yeah,
That man was getting like close to 1,000 yards, like in his late 30s, or yeah, late 30s. That dude was a machine.
yeah, no, some people are just cut out for the work, man. Just how it is. Yeah, I remember Kellen Moore being a quarterback at Boise State. That was first when people were starting to see Boise State. I remember the blue field, all that stuff, the first time seeing that on TV and being like, whoa, what is this? And they'd just score like 58 points a game against like Idaho or something like that. Yeah, no, I remember that. Where okay, I have a discussion point. I mentioned this somewhere in one of the descriptions for the video, or maybe I said it in the video, I don't remember. I am proposing right here and right now that
I'm already engaged.
TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are officially the best like edge rusher pair that we've had on the Steelers, like at the same time. I think I'm ready to say it because here's my case. Okay. One, edge rushers, I can't put like team success on them. It's not like it's not like a quarterback. I can't say, oh well, Terry Bradshaw won more Super Bowls than Ben Roethlisberger. Like, it's not the same. I can't put that on a pass rusher. So I have to discount that as a factor. It doesn't hurt, obviously. Like, you could make the case that Porter or Woodley even did more in the playoffs, and you'd be absolutely right. But I'm saying that as far as just actual players go, relative to their field, I don't think that we've ever had a pair that's better, because I think TJ Watt is far and away the best edge rusher in this league, and he's only gotten better. I don't care what anybody says. Through 2 weeks, he's been phenomenal. I mean, he's been even better than what my standard is for him, and it's okay for a pass rusher to have a down game or two. He is impacting every pass play. Every single pass play this year. Yeah. It's actually been unbelievable, especially week one. Week one, he should have had like 4 sacks. I mean, you can't put that on him. And Alex Highsmith, man, I don't know that there's 8 or 10 edge rushers better than him, and he's our second best guy. Like, literally, I think if you put him on almost any other team and he's the guy, you're getting 15 or 16 sacks out of him. I mean, I think that highly of him. I just think he's become a spectacular player, absolute unsung hero on this team. I just think he's tremendous.
He's definitely the king of pressures. I think I called him that in a previous video, and it's true. It's true. I think at last season, he finished with more pressures than Myles Garrett, and that's like the big stat that Brownies fans love to cling to, is pressures. And it's like, okay, so Alex Highsmith is better than him by your logic. But anyway, point being is that, like, Alex Highsmith, I think that you think a little higher of him than I do. I fully acknowledge what a good player he is. Did we overpay for him? In my opinion, a little bit. Am I going to be, burnt up about it that we spent an extra $5 million on him? No, I don't care. But I would consider him to be. I think you said that Clark Hagen's role fits him pretty well, and I would agree. I still, for some reason, I still think that Bud Dupree was better alongside TJ than Alex is, but
Yeah.
you know they're right here. It's really like an argument to the point where if you say Alex, no, Alex is better than Bud, I'm gonna go, yeah, I don't feel like arguing with you. So I mean, I like what we're seeing from them. I like that you've seen again that iron sharpens iron thing. I'm sure that Alex has learned a ton from TJ, and probably vice versa as well. I love seeing this pass rushing duo evolve. I love seeing that we seem to pressure the quarterback every damn snap so far, and that's just something we haven't had the last couple of years. We've had no pressure on our goddamn line the last couple of years, where it's just embarrassing seeing guys standing in the pocket. They can order a pizza and then they throw it 50 yards down the field for a touchdown. And I like that we're finally getting a little bit of defensive pushback for a change.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think he's surpassed, and I was a big Bud Dupree guy, but I think he has, for me, surpassed. I think he's surpassed Dupree in terms of overall ability. I think that, a lot of people, older folks, would go to the Kevin Green, Greg Lloyd pairing, which was admittedly phenomenal. I think most people in our age group would probably go to the Harrison and Woodley thing. And to me, that's the closest, I think that's the one where I think you could definitely have an argument that I'm wrong. Like, because Woodley, again, I mean, I said I didn't want to talk about team success, but Woodley, I think, had that streak to start his career where he had like 4 or 5 straight playoff games with like multiple sacks, which is just nuts. And then, Harrison on the other side obviously made, do we officially call it the greatest play in Super Bowl history? I think we have to, right?
It's definitely up there. I'm torn between calling that the greatest play, the Santonio toe tap the greatest play, and there's part of me that wants to, just for nostalgia purposes, put the Antoine Randall L reverse pass in Super Bowl 40 in there.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I know that like the tension wasn't the same. But if you're talking about an individual play, I mean, getting a wide receiver reverse pass touchdown in the Super Bowl is pretty hard to top.
Yeah,
that was our Philly special. We did it first, Philly. So,
we did.
Yeah,
we did. We were the king of the trick plays. But no, I think if you did a poll of 100 random football fans, I think the Harrison pick six would probably end up being pretty close to the top. I think maybe recency bias to the Philly special, like maybe might get votes, but I think that Harrison one, that it's just an unbelievable thing that he did. And it's just so memorable. I mean, there was like
absolutely exhausted.
I remember Keenan Thompson doing he was on Weekend Update on SNL, like being James Harrison, and I just remember laughing so hard at that. Like he's just out of breath. Yeah.
Like the game was a week ago, dude, and he's like, "Well, I'm no little guy."
somehow Keenan Thompson is still on SNL. Somehow.
And he's still funny. Most people on SNL for that long like lose their touch. Keenan's still hilarious.
He's a pro. He's been on TV my whole life, man. I used to watch all that, Keenan and Kel, all that. He's a big part of the reason that I do this. Honestly, I got into sketch comedy because I liked SNL and I loved all that. When I was 6, 7, 8 years old, whatever.
I really appreciate and I really respect the art of stand-up comedy, and it's something that I would have loved to have done, but I quickly realized that I wasn't funny. And you kind of need to do that in order to. So that was one thing, but I always love this has nothing to do with anything. Who's your favorite comedian?
Well, I don't want to get canceled, but my favorite stand-up comedian is Louis C.K. for sure.
Oh yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah. Mine's George Carlin. So
yeah, Louis C.K. or Mitch Hedberg maybe. Those are my type of people. Yeah.
I love Jesselnick. You a big fan of Jesselnick?
Yeah, I saw him live one time. He was hilarious.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, but yes. Go ahead. What?
I was going to say, what's funny is that we're talking about stand-up comedy here and whatnot, and our viewership has not dipped.
Yeah. Well, not that many people hanging out. What's with everybody? Why is nobody? Where is everybody tonight? What's going on? We got the donations though, so hey. Yeah. If you like what we do, we hang out, we talk about Myles Garrett buying chimpanzees on the black market. If you dig that, go over to Patreon. And if you're a free subscriber on Patreon, which there's a lot of people that are free subscribers, I think we're going to do some sort of giveaway soon because we got to convert those free Patreon subscribers to paid Patreon subscribers. Listen, guys, it's $4 a month. Like, if you ordered DoorDash today, you probably spent twice that on your delivery fees for whatever it is you got. Like, $4 a month, it's $1 a week. Like, sorry, like, you couldn't afford it, and you get a lot of benefits for it. That's where the show is going up.
And just know that if you decide the answer is no and that you will not support this channel, we will be under your bed.
Yeah, no, Frayne is already hiding under somebody's bed right now, but that's totally
Probably.
independent. That's totally independent of my ask. He's under there.
A big fan.
He's just under there doing his college work and watching the show. Yeah,
I love Frayne. If he told me that he edits all of his videos under a bed, I'd be like, yeah, I believe it.
That would check out. That would seem about right. Check out his newest shorts dropped on the channel today. I think he's got another one going live here soon. Set it and forget it. He says he's under your bed, so perfect. We have to be the weirdest fucking sports show on the internet, and I'm so proud of it. Like, there's a meta now. We have a meta of people. Like, it's crazy.
And I mean, you can't go into a single episode of 5 Star or whatever without expecting like a whole bunch of pop culture references and a whole bunch of, the Blasian Beef Boy, Jalen Warren. Like, you gotta find all sorts of and that's the charm of it.
Yes.
That's it. You can't have a show without that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have to watch my jokes sometimes because I do sometimes write things at 3 a.m. that somebody will comment like the next day and be like, hey, did you realize you said this? And I'm like, honestly, no. But like, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. Drunken Swami's on board with the Myles Garrett chimpanzee fighting ring documentary, which I guess is maybe that's going to be our big off-season project. I gotta watch more of that Chimp Crazy show. But yeah, I don't know. I just my feeling. I think that just as far as like actually impacting the game, man, I'm just so impressed with TJ and Alex, and I think you could definitely make the case that Harrison and Woodley were better, at their very peak. But I would argue that Harrison at his very best was never as good as TJ Watt is right now. That's my argument. True. That's my argument. Like, I think TJ Watt is, I mean, for me, he's now entered the conversation of like when we watched Antonio for 10 years, where I would say, like, I don't care what anybody says, this guy is the best dude I've ever seen do this. And I believe that. Like, I saw Jerry Rice, when he was older, but still good. I saw Randy Moss. Shout out 5 Star Sirens. Is this the first appearance of 5 Star Sirens this year?
This show, yes, but you had him a little bit in the first show.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I just think TJ he's entered that air with like Antonio Brown, where you just say like, this guy is just better at this than anybody else I've ever seen do it, and I really believe that. I have not seen anybody in my life watching football, truthfully, this run that he's been on since we started the show in 2019, just impact as much as he impacts. He's just unbelievable, man.
He is inevitable, I think is the best way to say it. Like, he's a guy who, when he is on the field, he will make an impact, and you do have to account for him. Period, point blank, exclamation point, end of discussion, get the fuck out of here. He's a guy who, like, he has that. I don't know if he's necessarily in this guy's tier yet, but he has that Lawrence Taylor thing to him, where if you can't identify where he is on the field, you should probably call a timeout, because if not, he's about to wreck your shit. And I mean, he really is that guy where he will not, like, he's a guy that isn't denied. You know what I mean? He's a little like Ben in that regard.
Oh,
no, I'm sorry. Anyway, no, but listen, but Watt is that guy where, yes, I do agree with you. He is better than we've ever seen Harrison be. And I mean, as much as I love James, he's not on TJ's level. That's just the fact. I mean, that isn't a slight on James as much as it is a propping up of TJ. And I also don't think that Alex is. I think you could already probably put him in Woodley's tier just kind of right now. No, he hasn't had the playoff success, but he also hasn't had the opportunity to. But I already, in a way, kind of like him more than Woodley. I think Woodley was a little bit hit or miss. I think people look back on Woodley's career a little better than he actually was. Not to say he wasn't good. He had a very hot start. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was a hot start and a fade out pretty quickly. And even then, he was kind of a hit or miss. Sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't kind of a player. Whereas with Alex Highsmith, you can guarantee at least, like 5 pressures per game. He's, again, like Clark Hagan's role, I think, is a good way to encapsulate it. But that's why I think that Bud is still a little bit better, because Bud was, I think, a legit pass. Like, he wasn't a number 1, but he was kind of like a number 1.5 almost.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could see that. But I would just argue that Bud didn't hit that until TJ got here.
That's true.
And Alex, the one thing I think you got to give him is, when he played a lot of games without TJ in 2022, he had 14.5 sacks. Like, I feel like people really forget about that. I mean, I
forget about that.
That 14.5 sacks is a hell of a year, man. Like, that's, we only see it as not that crazy of a year because TJ Watt has been putting up, 20 a year for so long here. And I mean, TJ Watt is already a Hall of Fame player, so no question. This whole thing of like, oh, he's not winning enough defensive, I agree, he's not winning enough Defensive Player of the Year awards, but he literally could have won Defensive Player of the Year 4 out of the last 5 seasons. Like, he, I mean, going back to 14.5 sacks, 15 sacks, 22.5 sacks, 22.5. Are you kidding? 22.5 sacks. That sounds like a made up statistic. And then he was injured a little bit in 22. And then in 23 last year, he had 19 sacks again. I think he's the first person in history to lead the league 3 times in sacks. It's unbelievable.
He is, yeah. And I mean, it's also, I will never let this go. He had 23.5 sacks that year. Aborted play is a bunch of garbage, and they did it specifically so that they could take that stat away from TJ.
And why did Michael Strahan not get charged with a aborted play on his record-setting sack on tax cheat and total fraud Brett Favre? Okay, let's talk about that. I don't want to talk about that, but I do want to. Yeah. But it is total bullshit. I remember that as a kid being like, that's not right. That's not how you set a record.
Can't do that.
And then no one ever took that away. How come Elias Sports Bureau or whatever never went back and said, I don't know, this isn't a sack? But the TJ Watt, they go in right away and they're like, oh no, he fumbled and like fell forward or whatever it was. I don't even remember what happened, but I know I'm pissed about it.
Bunch of garbage. So 23.5 sacks. I will not let that go until I will be an old man complaining in my recliner about that one day. Because it's a bunch of garbage.
He's already got almost 100 career sacks.
I know, right?
What's I don't even know what the career leaders are. Wow, Bruce Smith had
Reggie White.
Bruce Smith had 200 sacks. Reggie White had 198.
Through the first number of games, I thought you meant.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just looking at like overall career. TJ Watt is 66th in NFL history in sacks. If he has, say, 10 more this year, he'll get to like around 40th. I mean, he's going to end up, I would think, unless he falls off a cliff, at least getting around 150 sacks, which would put him in the top 10 all time. I think he's already good enough to be a Hall of Fame player if he retired right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, he has that level of undeniability about him where, like, Patrick Mahomes, like, after he won his first Super Bowl, he was already a Hall of Famer, at least in my eyes. Like, he just had that undeniable, I don't care if he gets injured tomorrow, he was an alien and better than anybody else at his position. And I think TJ has that same kind of element about him.
Agreed. Nicholas Good says Harrison, Joey Porter, Jack Lambert, Kevin Green, Levon Kirkland, Greg Lloyd. TJ is awesome, but let's not get carried away.
Wait. Okay, wait.
Tell me which one of those guys had 22.5 sacks in a season. Like, I mean,
was gonna say. No, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, like, explain to me which of those players is actually better than TJ. Like James Harrison, no, TJ's better. Joey Porter Sr., I love Joey, but he never really did what TJ's doing. Jack Lambert, sure. I mean, legacy wise,
It's a
you
different
can argue that.
position. It's a different
But they played a
position.
different position. It was 50 years ago. Come on now. Kevin Green, he didn't do what TJ did. Levon Kirkland didn't do what TJ did. Greg Lloyd is awesome, but I think TJ's better. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the simple fact is, none of those guys besides Harrison, maybe Lambert. I don't remember if Lambert had ever won a Defensive Player of the Year. TJ's
Yeah,
been,
but I don't put stock into that shit because that's
yeah,
just a player favorite award.
but I mean, whatever. I think that I truly think that TJ Watt is already there in terms of like elite all-time pass rushers. I just don't think that
Mhm.
I'm just saying what I've seen with my eyes. I watched Joey Porter, I watched James Harrison, a couple of those other guys, Green, Lloyd stuff. I was younger, so it's not like I was watching critically, but I've watched a lot of those games back too since I've been doing 5-star matchup, and it's not the same. It's just not. TJ Watt is just a game wrecker. Absolutely. I have seen very few defensive players impact a game like him in my entire time watching football, honestly. I mean, and the consistency with which he does it, that's the thing. Because a lot of defensive guys, like, if I say, like, oh, the Steeler who has impacted the game the most and blah, blah, blah on defense, I think a lot of people would instantly be like, well, Troy Polamalu. But people forget that, like, with a safety or, somebody like that, you're not going to have that impact every single week, because sometimes the game plan is to not throw anywhere near you and so on and so forth. So, I mean, to me, though, TJ Watt's just, like you said, he's inevitable.
Yeah, and I mean, like Troy Polamalu. I mean, you can make that argument. Troy's my favorite Steeler of all time, so I'm not really going to argue with you when you tell me that. But I mean, I think that, like, to your point, yeah. I mean, like, I remember that with Minka, the first year that we got Minka, like, he was getting pick after pick after pick, and then he went dark. And the reason for it is someone like charted it or whatever, and he had 2 targets, 2 targets in 8 weeks of football.
Yeah.
That's just what you can do. Like, and so then, yeah, to Tomlin and I think Keith Butler was still there at that point. Tomlin and Keith Butler's credit, that then they started moving him around more and having him kind of play center fielder a little more, so that they couldn't really hide from Minka to that degree. But there still are ways that you can do that. With TJ, he's a pass rusher. You have to get rid of the ball within the first 2.5 seconds, or you will lose the ball most likely. And it's crazy. That's another thing, is that he's not just a sack merchant, if you will, but he's also just damn good at getting strip sacks.
Yeah, and what about pass coverage? Remember that 6-pick sixer he had last year? He's picked off a handful at the line of scrimmage too. I mean, he does it all. And I've seen this comment too. Somebody else said it, but Nicholas responded. James Harrison made the NFL change the rules. He was a supreme destroyer. I'm not saying true. He made them change the rules because he was lighting dudes the fuck up, not because
he was a headhunter.
Yeah, it's not because you couldn't play against him. It's because he was injuring dudes. Like, I mean, I'm not saying, whatever you want to say about the modern version of defense in the NFL, I understand. But let's not act like they changed it because of, like, the same way they changed it because Mel Blount was, like, holding guys and just making it so it was impossible to pass. I mean, James Harrison, like, what was his best year? I think he had 16 sacks, maybe something like that.
That sounds correct. Yeah.
And it's not a knock. Again, I love Debo.
He's great.
But he had 84 sacks in his career. He played 15 years. He had, his best year was 2008 when he won Defensive Player of the Year. He had 16 sacks, which, that's not nothing. But then he had 8.5, 16, 10, 10.5, and then he never got over double digits again. To me, I mean, all due respect, like, he did have the impact in the run where it mattered. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, do you really think if we got to a Super Bowl, TJ Watt wasn't going to have an impact on the game? Like, I can't put that on him. It's not his fault that James Harrison got to play with a prime Ben Roethlisberger, and TJ Watt has gotten to play with Mitchell Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges. Do I need to go on?
And plus, TJ he got a fumble 6 against Mahomes in the one playoff game that he has gotten to play in.
It's his only thing he got to do. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, no,
But
I
like,
mean it's all respect, it's all opinion. I mean, you
yeah.
could say it's how you weight it. I just think it's really hard with defensive players to put team success as part of the equation. That's my challenge.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain guys who would be like, no, I was going to use like a kicker analogy, but that's not really a good way to put it. But like to an extent, you can do that with offensive players. I mean, at the end of the day, is Eli Manning a better quarterback? Is Eli Manning twice the quarterback that Dan Marino is because he has 2 rings to Marino's 0? No, of course not. Anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together would tell you that. And it's because like, team success and like whether or not like you have a balanced team around you and just scheduling and rivalries. And I mean, like, you make that. We just made that analogy with Josh Allen earlier, where like Josh Allen would already have, what do you think, probably 2 Super Bowls at least if this man named Patrick Mahomes didn't exist.
Yeah,
I mean, like, it becomes the Frazier and Ali thing after a while, and that's just kind of how things go. And so you look at it with defensive players and whatnot, and you have a guy like TJ who, yeah, he hasn't had the team success necessarily, but I mean, man, has he had much more of an impact than a lot of these guys had.
yeah.
And I think, by the way, and one other thing, I think that we're just saying these things, like we're saying that TJ's probably the best pass rusher, in Steeler history or whatever. Like, I just think that we're just saying these a little bit early. I think people will be saying these things in 3 to 5 years. I think we're just a little early to the table, and that's why we kind of get pushback for it sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think I always look at like the way that like I like to look at athletes and judge them in terms of like the like sort of long-term conversation thing is I just look at like a period of time and I say, is there a significant period of time where they just were better than everyone else? And I think TJ now has gotten to that point where we were like that with AB in like 2018 or so, where you looked at the last 5 years and you say, who's ever had a better 5-year run? And literally, like, Antonio literally did have arguably the best 5-year run any wide receivers ever had in the history of the NFL. And I think that TJ Watt right there, I mean, I don't know if he has literally had the best 5-year run because he did have the 1 year where he was hurt and missed a bunch of time. But outside of that, man, I mean, he's had 4 out of the last 5 years that were in, high teens and into the 20s in sacks. So, yeah, I mean, it's all opinion. You could think James Harrison's better.
What's crazy is that he is in. Have you seen that statistic? They always show it with TJ Watt, that he has like X amount of sacks through the first X amount of games, and it only shows like, Reggie White or whoever. Like, it shows like 3 people all time that have ever had more than he has through that first number of games. And I just think it's crazy that TJ Watt has done that while also being injured out of that time pretty much a full season.
Yeah. Yeah,
think about that for a second. Like, all these other guys like had pretty good streaks of being pretty active by and large, and then you have TJ who was out for a season and is still like almost there. I don't know, man. I mean, that guy is an otherworldly kind of player, and I just can't wait to see where his career goes from here.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, and I hope it goes on longer and longer and longer. And shout out to him. He is gonna be dad soon, which is super exciting. They announced that they got a kid coming. So shout out Trent Jordan Watt. Yeah, gonna be a dad. Got that dad strength going. Let's see if get another 20 sacks this year. Win a defensive player of the year.
He needs to name his kid TJ Jr. So it'll be TJJ.
Yes, TJ JJ TJ DJ. Yeah, bring back Derek Watt, What's he doing?
Yeah.
We need more Watts.
Why did we get rid of Derek?
I think he just wasn't really all that good.
We don't really use a fullback very much until recently.
Yeah, well, we replaced him with another brother. We had to get Connor Hayward.
Yeah, right.
So Connor Hayward basically took his job. Yeah, can I just say, shout out Connor Hayward. Like, I want him to catch a couple more passes again. It's weird to me that his career has seemingly gone backwards because when he was a rookie, I thought they used him kind of nicely. Maybe I'm imagining that he had more passes than he did, but last year and so far in 2 games, it just feels like he doesn't exist anymore. And I just think he's a talented football player. I just think he's somebody who should get a chance here and every now and then, you know?
Yeah, he's a guy that I would like to see. He's a flexible kind of a player where he can play fullback and tight end and kind of spread out wide so he can draw a linebacker or something like that. I mean, you saw that he already has like a touchdown catch or two. I feel like he had that role of, let's say, once a game he'd catch something, but that one catch per game was on like some crucial third down, like into
Hmm.
the fourth quarter. Like he just had that, I don't want gadget role, I guess.
Yeah, the H back, the like Chris Cooley kind of spot. Remember
Yeah.
him? How about that name
Yeah.
for the pass?
Oh
He did
man,
have.
Chris Cooley was a monster.
He was a
too.
fun
He was
player, yeah.
really good.
He did have, I think, one of the nicest Kenny Pickett touchdown passes ever, though. That game against Atlanta. It was in Atlanta, I think, Pickett's first year starting. Really nice, like little like out and up kind of route. Remember that touchdown?
Yeah, that was where Pratt Fryermuth had the angry run that game.
Yeah, that was when Fryermuth really went on his run where you were like, oh, is this guy as good as anybody? Fryermuth, by the way, been getting involved in the offense more. I know you said this with Art Smith with the tight ends. But he's playing a ton, man, and he's getting opportunities, and I think he's doing really well with it. I loved that little play, that little rollout, like lob pass that they hit to him in the red zone right before the first touchdown. Just beautiful. And I think we're remembering that, to your point earlier, like he could kind of be the wide receiver too, you know, and maybe they should treat him as such.
Yeah, and I mean, you should probably treat him as that because he's not a super great blocker. Not saying he sucks at blocking, but he's definitely not a
No, he
not a
sucks
blocker.
at blocking. You could say it. He sucks.
No,
But-
don't go that far. He's not as bad of a blocker as like Ebron was.
Yeah, well, Ebron, I don't even think he tried. I miss the Ebrontos. I miss the Ebrontosaurus. I miss all of it. Who do you who's your like what nickname from the 5-star years? Like who do you miss the most that's passed on? Like I you know, I'm really glad we got Cookie's favorite son back. You know, that's a fun one. I liked the richest man in the universe with Bud Dupree because he was tearing it up in his contract year. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. I loved the Abrontosaurus though.
The Abrontosaurus was just perfect. I feel
Yeah,
it was kind of like it established 5-star lore in a lot of ways.
yeah. People used to hate me for that. Anytime I would say anything positive, people hate Eric Ebron for some reason. People hate him, and I don't know why, but they do. I would just like every time I'd say something positive about him, people would just go off on him. They hated his guts. But yeah,
I think actually my favorite one that you've had so far is the electric bowling ball. Jalen
oh,
Warren.
that's a good one. Yeah, I like that one.
You
Yeah,
have a favorite?
like of guys that have gone like I don't know. I mean, I think my all-time favorite truly is Cookie's favorite son. Like I just love that because for so long people just were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like and I was like, well, because his mom is Cookie Edmonds. And I just that line
Okay.
there was a line. Did you not know what that was about?
I had an inkling that that's what his mom's name was, but I wasn't positive. I was just taking context clues into consideration. So it's good to get confirmation on that.
There was when we're talking about Terrell Edmonds, if you don't know. There was I don't know, I think we were gonna play the Bills when they had Tremaine Edmonds, and somebody asked Tomlin about going out to dinner pre-draft with both of them because he went to dinner with Tremaine and Terrell and their parents, and somebody asked him like what his like takeaway was or whatever, and Tomlin just laughed and he goes, Cookie Edmonds runs the show. Like just like you could see just like he had just such utter respect for like what a bad bitch Cookie Edmonds was. You know what I mean? Like I felt it from Tomlin of like he just loved her. And so that just stuck with me. And just, somebody being named Cookie is just funny to me. And so the idea that Terrell was her favorite son, I just, because he's not the
I
he's
love
not the
it.
better player of the two, but I just love the idea that he would be her favorite. So yeah, that's
Cookie.
oh, and then Chase the Bank Claypool, that was a fun one.
Oh,
Like I know Chase whatever, but that was a fun time.
the bank thing, like it felt like we could never have come up with a better nickname for Chase, so we just stuck with the bank.
It's fun to
He
say. I
actually,
mean,
yeah, he actually at one point trademarked the name Mapletron, and oh jeez,
cringe.
it's pretty bad. I will say that Cookie Edmonds is basically, this will, maybe one person in the chat will get this. Cookie Edmonds is the Mama Woodley of the NFL world.
Yeah.
Mama Woodley, for those that don't, for those that, Tyron Woodley, who's a former welterweight champion, his mother would always show up to the fights, and it was very much the same thing of, that she runs the show, she's got some wisdom.
Mhm.
I remember that after Tyron lost the belt and he got absolutely demolished by his opponent, and his opponent, Mama Woodley, walked up and gave him a hug and said, "It's your time now." And it's just like everybody like gave a collective salute to her. So the Cookie Edmonds story just sounds very similar to that.
That's funny. Somebody shout out 24-inch Pythons Chase Claypool. Did I say that? I
Oh,
guess maybe I
yes.
compared him to the Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan or something. Jumpman Joe, that was a good one. I liked when I used to say Joe Hayden lifts weights because there was that clip. My favorite, I think one of my favorite things I ever did on this show was that Titans game from 21. That was one of my favorite games we ever did. And he had that sweet interception. Remember, it got like tipped up and he like swooped under it, kind of like the Palomalu play. And I remember putting in the thing. I was like, he lifts weights, and I had it with like a really like big like effect on it and stuff. And like, yeah, I loved Joe, man. I really was just such a fan of him. And then like, I mean, I think the definitive one is got to be Large Benjamin, because like that was just like my guy, right? And like, it's not a creative, it's just kind of a joke off of Big Ben, but like I just, that for me is like, I feel like my definitive one. Oh, On the Button Sutton, that was a good one, and he came back too. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, no, I love I love Trent Jordan. I love just
Yeah,
you
it's a fun
calling
one.
him TJ. I don't think I've ever heard you call, in the last like couple years at least, I don't think I've ever heard you
Yeah.
call him TJ. It's always Trent or Trent Jordan or
Yeah.
Mr. Trent Jordan.
Yeah.
That's so great.
I mean, because like it's like, not to like be, self-aggrandizing or whatever, but it's like when you do this, it's just you find yourself saying different combinations of the same thing all the time. And like really that's where it comes from, is just I get to a point where I'm just like, how can I say this person's name differently? Because if I just say, especially with like the quarterback or the running back, it gets hard because it's like, okay, Najee, Justin Fields, Ben Roethlisberger, like you have to just kind of make it, I just try to make it fun and, but appreciate that. That's
Monsieur
such a,
Benjamin.
yeah, such a trip that people like remember shit that I said like 5 years ago. That's cool. Thanks, guys. You make me feel smart.
It's fun to come up with these little. I love the idea that we'll see. Oh wait, did they? I can't remember if it's the Steelers or if it's another team that bans signs. But I like the idea that one day we'll see like Large Benjamin or Cookie's favorite son or something on a sign. I'm praying
Yes.
for that day.
Yeah, like when you remember the old like wrestling games where you could make like custom signs for like the crowd and stuff? That would be me doing that. I used to be able to do that in Madden, I think, but like who would ever see that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the 80 plus features that have been removed from current Madden titles.
A tragedy. Real tragedy. So what do you think? You like our chances this week?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm at this point, I haven't even put out a prediction for the season, and so I just kind of threw it away for this year. So I don't know. We're taking it one game at a time. I predicted we would lose week 1, and we won. And so then I predicted we'd win week 2, and we won. And so now I don't really know what to think. again, it's a pretty big step up in competition going from I don't even know who the Atlanta head coach is. I forgot. Was it Raheem Moore? I think.
Yeah, Raheem Morris. Yeah,
Raheem Morris, yeah. What did I say? Raheem Moore. I think he's the.
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, Raheem Morris. I mean, he's a new head coach. I mean, you say what you will about that. Sean Payton, who's washed up. I mean, now you go against Harbaugh, who's actually a good head coach, who did not tamper. Totally did not tamper and did not break any rules.
Yeah, no, he just left his sweet gig making $100 million a year, being treated like a god because he definitely didn't tamper.
Yeah, yeah, but it's okay though. Yeah, I think that he'll do. I think that we'll do well, but I don't think that we're gonna get blown out or anything like that. This doesn't feel like before in years past we've had defenses that feel like they've had gaping holes in them, and this is a team that just doesn't feel like it has any massive weaknesses. I really don't think that we're going to see any team go and put up 450 yards of passing on the team this year. It just doesn't feel like that kind of a defense, unless we have like a million injuries, knock on wood, or something else like that. But so I think we'll do well. I think if gun to the head, if I had to pick one, I'd say I want to predict we lose, just because Herbert and the gun power that they have and whatnot. But I like our chances more now than I did 3 weeks ago. I'll put it that way.
Well, that's a positive spin. One thing I'll say, looking at the Chargers, they played the Raiders in week 1. They won 22-10. And then they played the Panthers this week and won 26-3. Obviously, the Panthers are horrible. They just benched their first overall draft pick. That's becoming that is quickly approaching a Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning kind of situation. The fact that they drafted
DeMarcus
him.
Russell.
Yeah, just the fact that they drafted him over CJ Stroud, though. I mean, it just looks. I mean, CJ Stroud, man, the Stroud just it has it, man. Like he's just gonna be the guy for a long time. He's got whatever the thing is, but yeah, they played the Raiders. They won 22-10. But the one thing I'll say is, they have been tearing it up on the ground. J.K. Dobbins has been fantastic. 10 carries, 135 and a score week 1. And then 17 carries, 131 and a score week 2. He's got to be leading the league in rushing, I'm sure. That's just fantastic. They're definitely making an effort to be balanced. Justin Herbert, though, week 2, 130 yards passing. Obviously, they didn't need it. And then week 1, only 144 yards passing. So maybe this is a team that, doesn't want to be as high flying as they once were. So maybe that could play into our hands a little bit. I think if they try to make this a grinded out game, it's going to be interesting to see if the Steelers can consistently stop the run, because obviously the Chargers have had a ton of success with that this season. But I'd always rather a team try to ground and pound and keep it close against us than a team just come out with a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen and put up 35 points, because I don't think we're there offensively,
No.
But if we hold the Chargers around 20 points, can we and should we be able to compete? Absolutely. I think the Steelers might surprise some people this weekend.
It's possible. First of all, I do want to say I really love that Harbaugh came back and just did what he was doing with the 49ers. I don't know if it's exactly the same schematically. I haven't actually watched them, but I do love that from what I've seen, they're basically doing the same Harbaugh style, run the ball a million times, use your tight end and use your quarterback sparingly. And if he's mobile, throw in some options. They kind of do the same thing, both them Harbaugh brothers, in a way. They just have slightly different ways of going about it. But I love that he came back and just kept doing what he was doing, because you see sometimes with a coach that they're in the NFL and then they leave for whatever reason, they go to college and they come back and they try to change what made them who they were, and that's almost always a formula for disaster.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that he's coming back and he's doing what he was doing. I think I think that I'm still going to predict that we lose, but I will say that going against a balanced team favors us a lot better, to your point, than a team that's going to come out gunslinging. But if I can make a quick counterpoint to that, is that I also have more confidence in this defense than I have in a lot of these past couple seasons defenses, to the point where I almost kind of hope that they come out and gunsling and try to throw it a whole bunch, because I want to see how our defense reacts to it. It's going to happen at some point. You may as well get prepared for it, especially in a pass-heavy league. And if we can stop that, especially against an alien like Justin Herbert, then I start to like our chances more and more and more as the year goes on.
Very fair, very fair. I dig it. I think, the one thing too, I just will say, because you said pass happy league, I think that I saw a statistic over the first 2 weeks. I don't have it in front of me, but over the first 2 weeks, I think scoring is down pretty significantly, and I think it has. I think it has overall the last couple of years started to go down. I think we are entering into a sort of more bully ball kind of era. I don't think you're seeing as many guys. The season statistics are still going to be bigger than they used to be because again, you got to remember we're playing 17 games now. But like, I do think that in general, we're seeing more of these like 21 to like 16 type games than we did maybe 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, there was that
Definitely
period
more
of
than that.
time, that 14-15 kind of year where like, Stafford and Roethlisberger and all these guys were putting up 5,000 yards and stuff like that. And for the most part, outside of that first year he started, even like Patrick Mahomes isn't putting up like 5,000 yards and 55 touchdowns every year. Those are aberrations. I think a lot of us thought that, that was going to become the normal. Especially after like Peyton went to the Broncos and they did that and so on and so forth. But I don't think that's, I think we're getting a little more old school and a little more defensive oriented, which is truthfully, which makes me excited about the 24 Steelers. Honestly, I think that they have a chance against anybody if Justin Fields continues or if Russell Wilson starts to play. If they continue to do these routine things routinely and not turn it over and sprinkle in some big plays, I don't see why we can't compete with almost anyone, especially, look at the way the AFC is breaking down, man. Cincinnati's 0-2, Baltimore is 0-2, Cleveland 1-1, Miami, Tua is going to be down for a month.
At least.
I mean, so hey, shout out Mac, dropped $4.99 in the chat. Very successful. This is awesome. I love 5-star people because we didn't even have that many people watching tonight, and we still got 20-something dollars in donations. What a bunch of legends. I love all you people who watch this show. We appreciate you greatly. Make sure you get over on that Patreon, patreon.com/5SMU. Get some cool bonuses. You get the full 5-star matchup experience. Again, YouTube is really handcuffing me. I can't put the show in full. It is what it is, but for the time being, patreon.com/5SMU. Gage, what do you want to leave the folks with before we get out of here?
It'll be interesting to see how the rest of this year goes. It'll be interesting to see if Justin Fields becomes he's already turning into our Cordell Stewart. And it's strange because like it's playing out pretty much to a T how I said it would in my video about Fields, where I was talking about how he's not the answer. But the weird thing is that he's doing everything I said he would, missing open throws and yet like randomly hitting good deep shots. And yet that's been enough for us to win so far. So it just goes to show you the fun little paradigm, a fun little anomaly that is professional football, and about how it will make fools out of anybody the sport will. But it'll be fun to see how it goes. And yeah, like I said, I'll predict that the Chargers beat us, but I have, like I said, a lot more confidence now than I did a couple weeks ago. And seeing that Fields seems to be so far pretty adept at playing safe, fundamental football, which if you would have told me that 3 weeks ago, I'd have looked at you like you had 3 heads. So it'll be fun to see. I'm excited. So follow me on Twitter at Gage Ryan Video. Follow me on my MMA channel at Contender MMA. You can check that out if you guys are fans of mixed martial arts and all things fighting. And yeah, I think that's it.
All right. Well, we appreciate your efforts. I think you gave us a varsity above the shoulders performance today in the parlance of Mike Tomlin. We appreciate you, Gage. Yeah, I mean, I got nothing particular I want to leave folks with other than the fact that I continue to ride this Strawberry Fields game, and I just think that, I'm more interested in this Justin Fields future than I am in the Russell Wilson future. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Hey, listen, if he goes out and stinks it up and Wilson gets healthy and you want to put him in, go off. but I just wanted this team to win. I'm a Steelers fan first and foremost. You know, let's get it done. Let's get a dub. Let's go to 3-0. Could you imagine, really? And then you got the Colts next week, who are struggling a little bit. I just think it'd be a really strong place to be in. You know, get yourself some breathing room, man. And because that second half of the schedule, I don't care what anybody says. That second half of the schedule, the Steelers got totally boned, and it's brutal. They got all the division games in the span of like 6 weeks, something like that, 7 weeks. It's insane. So, got to make your hay early on. You know, go out there and win one for the fans at home. Steelers 23, Chargers 20. That's what I'm gonna say. It's close. Chargers have a chance. Cameron Dicker misses a kick as clock expires. How about that? All right.
I like it.
Love you guys. Head over to patreon.com/5SMU. Support the show. $4 a month. Do it. You'll appreciate it. Or I'll appreciate it. I don't know. Maybe you'll appreciate it. Whatever. And we will catch you down the road on the next edition of 5 Star Radio.